Welcome to the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I'm Coach Lisa Callahan, a recovered emotional eater. I ended decades of self-inflicted struggles with food through taking a journey of self-discovery, which revealed the secrets of what was going on underneath the food. Throughout this podcast, we'll explore topics that are rarely talked about, like low self-esteem, lack of confidence, people-pleasing, and decades of self-sabotaging behaviors. Rather than just focusing on the food, we'll dive deeper into aspects of who you are as a person and how you ended up relying on food for comfort to begin with. My mission is simple: to empower women to regain their confidence and prioritize self-love, regardless of the number on the scale. Discover what you've really been craving, and trust me, it's not about the food. This podcast is based on insights shared from the Women's Emotional Eating Community Support Group on Facebook, so be sure to check out the show notes for the link to the group and a complimentary gift just for you. Now, let's dive into today's episode. Hey, welcome to another fun and insightful episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. The topic today is the 3 secrets that I use to conquer stress eating, beat self-sabotage, and kick the all or nothing mindset around food. This training today comes from the latest masterclass that I just taught last week. You can grab a free copy to the full training inside of the show notes. So make sure that after you're done listening to this, that you go grab the entire training, because you're not going to want to miss a thing. This class that I taught was so important because it reveals all of the secrets that I used to fix my emotional eating habits while I was taking a journey of self-discovery. So in case you don't know, self-discovery is where you begin to turn your thoughts inward. Let's face it, you've been looking outside of yourself for solutions to fix your struggles with emotional eating for decades now. Every diet that you've ever been on is someone else's idea. You've never learned how to ignite your own intuition and become an independent thinker. Every diet that you've ever been on teaches you a little bit of this and a little bit of that. And yeah, it might have worked for one person, but for another person, actually that very same diet could be their poison. So that's something that I want you to write down right off the hop, is that one person's perfect food is actually another person's poison. So it doesn't make sense to go on someone else's diet plan, because yeah, what might have worked really, really well for them might work for you for a little while. But then if you don't know how to ignite your own intuition, if you don't know how to listen to your own inner voice, if you don't know how to trust yourself, then things aren't going to go well in the long run. So the farther away you will be taken from your truth, from the ability for you to be able to trust yourself. So every diet that you go on is going to take you farther away from fixing this problem with emotional eating. So if you think about it, every time that you've ever decided that you can't trust yourself, anytime you've ever said to yourself, like, I don't know what I'm doing, or I do know what I'm doing, I'm just not doing it. Like, I know what to do, I just don't do it. How does that leave you feeling? Does it leave you like I felt, which was defeated, deflated, drained, guilt, felt like a failure because I couldn't lose weight and keep it off. I couldn't stick to the diet plan. And the reason why you keep feeling like this over and over again when you continue to look for solutions that are outside of yourself is because you never fixed the reason why this problem with weight ever started to begin with. Like, how did that happen? Once upon a time, I mean, when you were a baby, if you didn't want your food anymore, you were like, you spit it out. You were like, I'm done. You couldn't force feed a baby. If the baby's full, done. And when the baby wants to eat, they know they want to eat, because guess what? They're hungry. So somewhere along the line of your life, not when you were born, somewhere along the line of your life, this food thing became a problem for you. And your solution to fixing the food thing is just to ignore the problem to begin with, which is, how did you get away from your intuition? How did you stop trusting yourself? When did all of that start? And that's why what I teach is how to fix the root cause of the problem. And I do this through a system that's called Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System. And it works. It works for every single person. There's not one person who cannot crush their food thing. That I can guarantee. So the cool part of self-discovery is that once you get a taste of your own power, you won't be hungry for anything else. So I've spent the last decade of my life now sharing all of this goodness with other people. And that's why I'm so excited to bring this topic to you today, because I want to share the magic with you too. So let me give you a little idea of what it feels like to have a taste of your own power. What is possible for you if you embark on a journey of self-discovery? So most people think that they just know themselves so well. So what happens is that when you're struggling with doing something that's contradicting you, like your goodness, like you're so helpful to others, you're so kind, you're so caring, you're so like take charge, and you're certainly not lazy. Like someone asks you to do something, you're doing it. Then for yourself, there's a different story. It's like, oh, I know how I am. I know I can't be trusted. Put one piece of chocolate in my mouth and I'm done for the rest of the night. Like I can't. And then I'll go to the next thing, the next thing. I know myself so well. And so the thing is that when you say that you know yourself so well, but the version of you that you know is a contradiction to the version of you that other people know, well, there's something wrong. And then you end up blaming things for why you can't trust yourself around food. So you end up blaming stress. You end up telling yourself that you have a lack of willpower. You end up blaming, your past sometimes, like, well, this is how my family was. Like it was, pasta every night. And you could even blame your genetics. And also just a mixture of like worrying about the future, what's going to be, and frustration, of course. So people describe emotional eating as almost like an out-of-body experience, completely mindless, shocking, embarrassing, and super confusing. And I know what this feels like because I struggled with it for decades, and I now know what it feels like to be in a new mindset. So I know that I had these struggles for a long time. And when I was in it, I really couldn't see any other way because I thought I knew myself so well. And so if I continued in that pattern, then I wouldn't have been able to have crushed my food thing. And then I wouldn't be able to be here with you today. So is it possible that because you are struggling with emotional eating, that you are also blocking yourself from discovering your purpose in your life? A lot of people tell me, they're like, I don't know what my purpose is. I have no idea. And then they also tell me that they're bored and that they're bored of eating and they're worried about other people. And like all of that is actually the reason why you don't feel like you know what your purpose is, because you're blocking it and you're using food to do that. So thankfully, I was able to crush my food thing. And thankfully, I was then able to discover what my purpose is, which I didn't know what that was before. So that's why I love being here with you all. And that's why I love being with my Crush That Food Thing Self-Discovery System clients too, because unless you really know how to do this, I know for me, it was not obvious. So I love helping people because this could take like an entire lifetime to figure out. And if you're spending all of that time and energy trying to crush your food thing, but you really don't know how to do it, you could get really frustrated and just sort of quit. The thing about quitting, though, is that it'll never speed up the process. So if you start to invite yourself to know a new version of yourself, but then you're like, whatever, this is just how I am, and you give up on yourself, again, the lessons are going to come to you over and over and over again until you do get it. It took me almost 6 years to crush my food thing, and I really struggled to figure it out. Plus, I didn't have a step-by-step system or a program or a plan to follow. And I also didn't have support from like-minded women who were also trying to crush their food thing. So I made a lot of mistakes and it took a lot longer than I would have liked it to, which is why I decided to take everything that I have ever learned and put it together inside of one spectacular, amazing system called our Learning Hub. So I want to share a little background with you of why I called this system Crush That Food Thing. I know that's a pretty unique name because when I started to realize like what I was doing, I actually did learn that what I was doing was considered full-blown binge eating disorder. And I've also felt that I had bulimia because what I've learned since is that I thought bulimia was just like purging by like getting rid of the food, like eating all of it and then, purging it. What I've since learned is that you can struggle with bulimia if you eat all the food and then you purge through over exercise. And I definitely had that thing going on for probably my whole life. I mean, since I was like at least 10, I remember even keeping track of my weight and then like writing down that I did like the Jane Fonda workout. And like I had a lot of stuff that started right when I was like a kid. And so I start to think about these labels of what they give, right? Binge eating disorder and bulimia and all that stuff. And in my mind, I think to myself, okay, well, hang on a minute. If somebody bothered to gather information and to write something down, to actually document it, then there must be a solution to this, right? Because typically when we like come up with like a medical name for something, like we're in search of a solution, right? Like we want to fix it, we want to cure it, we want to get rid of it. And so to me, when I heard that, I read and I was like, oh my gosh, that's me. I'm doing that. This is actually a binge eating disorder. I'm like, wait a minute, I have a binge eating disorder? What? I decided in my head right then and there that I was not going to be labeled by any disorder. And I wasn't going to take that title for my own life and just kind of chalk it up to like, well, I don't know, I have a disorder. Like, what am I going to do about it? No, I was going to do everything to fix that, to cure it, to stop it, to end it. I wanted out of it. I wanted to read the definition for binge eating disorder and not feel like I saw my picture next to the definition, right? I didn't want to be stuck in that cycle forever. Because honestly, being stuck in this vicious cycle, it is a vicious cycle because it feels like you're whipping all around and it's confusing and you don't know what you're thinking. And then you think one thing one day and another thing another day. And it just feels like there's like at least two of you, if not 10 of you, right? So it's a horrible feeling and it's coming from the inside, which is why it's so shocking that there are so many plans and diets and things that people give you that are coming from the outside of you. Someone else telling you, do this, do that. Like it makes me wonder, like if those plans will ever like actually help anybody. And to me, if you're struggling with a food thing, I'm not saying a diet doesn't work. A diet does work. A diet is for losing weight. You will lose weight if you go on a diet. It's just that if you have a food thing, probably not going to work so well. So let's go ahead and talk about emotional eating and like why this feels like so unfixable. So when I first started into this journey of self-discovery, it was like this thought was that, wow, like I actually can have my own back. I can like think about things through a wider perspective. I don't have to be stuck in a narrow mindset. I don't have to think that things are all or nothing. And so when I started to embrace the idea that like my mind could be open, that is when I first realized that I could either A, have my own back, or B, I could be my own worst enemy. And that was a choice. See, I had always called myself my own worst enemy for years now. I was like, yep, I'm my own worst enemy. And I almost made it like a joke, like it was so funny that I was my own worst enemy, but it's really not. So I felt at that time when I started to recognize with awareness the things that I was learning in self-discovery about myself, that I wasn't applying those things with food. I recognized with awareness that I was actually using the food to hurt myself. And I didn't want to do that anymore. I wanted to like the image in the mirror. I wanted to know that I could trust myself. And I wanted to rest assured, like in my own head, to know that no matter what, that I had my own best interest at heart. I no longer wanted to worry about what other people thought of me. I didn't want to feel stressed out about things that were out of my control. And I no longer wanted to feel the pains from my past. I did not want to think about the future, the past, or anything. I wanted to just stay present. And it was at that time that I recognized when I started to apply the things that I had learned in self discovery, and I started to apply things towards this binge eating disorder that I had discovered I had. That is when I crushed my food thing. And I could feel it. I could feel it inside of me. I could feel that like this was different and I was never going to be that person anymore again. And it's interesting because sometimes people feel like if they like aren't the same person, if they like change themselves, that like maybe they're going to be this other type of person, or maybe they're going to be a person that they don't like, or maybe they're not going to be nice anymore, or maybe they're going to be selfish, like so and so that they knew from a long time ago, and they don't want to be like that person. So a lot of times people are really afraid to let go, or to shift or to change or to grow, because they kind of feel like there's this person that they're not going to know, and that can be scary. So again, thinking about this from a sense of power and control and like a confidence, right? Like you could feel like you have this ability to be able to so this can be your life. You can crush your food thing too. So, again, I'm so happy to be sharing this information with you today because once upon a time, I used food to lead my day. It controlled every thought, it robbed me of my energy. And I don't want that for you. So, stick around so that I can break this all down. All right. So, now let's dive into the three secrets. Secret number one is you don't have to believe everything that you think. If you keep telling yourself that you're an emotional eater, if you keep telling yourself that you're a stress eater, or if you keep telling yourself that you just want to get control of yourself, you will have to find things that become emotionally stressed and feel like you're out of control. Like you're going to actually have to find things that cause you to feel emotional, that cause you to feel stressed, and that cause you to feel out of control. Because the only way that you'll be able to get to the food is if you are already starting from that place of distress, because you're telling yourself that you're a stress eater. So you've got to go find stress. You're telling yourself that you eat emotionally. So now you have to become emotional about things. You're telling yourself that you feel like you have to gain control of yourself, which means that you have to start out from a place of being out of control. So do you see where if you keep telling yourself these things, you'll have to fulfill your own words. So you've got to stop telling yourself that you're a stress eater, or that you eat emotionally, or that you have to just gain control of yourself because you're so out of control. Many people stay stuck in old patterns and habits because they tell themselves, well, I don't know, that's just how I've always been. I've been an emotional eater for as long as I can remember. Forget about all of that. It doesn't matter if it's true. It doesn't matter if you've been eating emotionally forever. So what? Is that what you want for your future? If it's not, then you'll have to change your ideas around being an emotional eater, around being a stress eater, around feeling like you're out of control. Like, yes, you've been an emotional eater forever because guess what? You've been telling yourself that forever. So, time to stop. You have to stop telling yourself because it's actually not true. None of that is actually coming from you because you say you want one thing, but then you end up doing another. So go after what you want, not after what you think you have, because that is coming from your sneaky subconscious mind. And it's going to be on autopilot because you're the only one that can stop thinking it. That if you don't get ahead of yourself, if you don't tell yourself, wait a minute, stop thinking that, then it'll just keep going on and on forever because the subconscious is coming from below the level of your conscious awareness. So these are thoughts that you don't even recognize are happening. All right. So now let's talk about these thoughts a little bit. Do you ever tell yourself that you can't be trusted around food? Do you ever look in the mirror and criticize every line, every wrinkle, every dimple? Are you constantly telling yourself that you're out of control with food? Do you tell yourself that you are lazy or unmotivated or that you're just not capable of change? Have you convinced yourself that you're a sugar addict or that sugar is just your go to? Ever said those words? Do you believe that there is a track or a wagon that you are falling on and off of? And do you believe that you will be starting over again on Monday, week after week, year after year? If so, I get you. This used to be me too. And this is how I used to feel every single day for decades, which is why I was constantly looking outside of myself for a diet plan. But that was part of the trick. As long as I believed that the solution was out there, my sneaky subconscious thoughts could stay right where they were. And it like never occurred to me that all I had to do was stop telling myself that there was an out there or that I was out of control to begin with. And so that's why if you can stop telling yourself this, you'll start to build trust and you'll start to build emotional resilience and you'll start to go off of your intuition. And so that'll be the step that you're missing, is to be able to trust yourself, to intuitively know within yourself, with your wholeness, what it is that you want to eat instead of having to be like, oh, I don't know. I know what to eat, but I'm just not eating it. Right. That's a betrayal of integrity inside of yourself. And we can fix that together. So that was the part for me that was missing. I had no belief in myself. I was just like, this is how I am. And I allowed myself to tell myself these negative things forever. I thought that the answers to finding my own happiness lived outside of me. I thought once I lost the weight, then I would be happy. Once I could gain control of myself, then I would be happy. Boy, oh boy, was I wrong about this. What I actually had to do was quite the opposite. I had to become happy with myself first so that then I would naturally want to make better choices for myself. I had to learn how to stop telling myself that I was a stress eater and that I just couldn't deal with all the pressures of life, that I knew what to do, but that I just couldn't do it because I knew myself so well and I couldn't be trusted around food. As long as I kept focusing on the problems got worse. And then that random little chatterbox in the back of my head, the little voice inside, she grew louder and louder. So ask yourself this question. What does the chatterbox voice in the back of your head keep telling you? It's time to help her learn how to stay quiet just for a little while so that you can learn new thoughts. Since let's face it, the old way is just not working for you anymore. Because it's literal insanity. It's doing the same thing over and over again and then expecting different results, which is not working. And that's why I say that it's helpful to work with a coach, because a coach will be able to be like, oh, hey, look, let's work on these weaknesses until they become your strengths. Because this problem is coming from your subconscious mind and your subconscious mind is below the level of your conscious awareness, it's super tough to know what to look out for. Back when I was struggling, I thought that I needed stronger willpower. I knew that I needed to stop self-sabotaging. I thought that I had to be more in control of myself. So, because I couldn't do that, I shamed myself. I blamed myself. I guilted myself. I bullied myself. I really didn't want to feel like that anymore, but I swear I just didn't know what to do because I felt like I had been struggling for so many years. And so there was so much fear involved in changing. Plus, I convinced myself that I was just broken and like it's just how it was. Like I was just one of those broken people, but I didn't want anybody to know that. So I showed other people a different version of myself. So now that I know that this isn't reality, that that was just fear talking, that was just words in my head that I actually had to stop thinking, I don't want you to struggle with this either. So if you feel like you've been struggling with a food thing your whole life, I want to remind you of one thing. Going back to secret number one, you do not have to believe everything that you think. All right, let's go now to secret number two, which is if you have a food thing, a diet will never work for you, Period. End of story. So I'm going to give you 20 symptoms of having a food thing so that you can know what you're struggling with is fixable. So a food thing is fixable, period, but not with a diet. That's the key. A diet actually makes a food thing worse. So I'm going to read off 20 symptoms of a food thing. And if you have even one of these things, you're going to want to get support to fix the problem immediately because you only get one life. So why would you want to be consciously choosing to keep a problem by using the wrong tool to fix the problem? Meaning that after today, if you hear yourself in any of these 20 things, and you're going to go right back to your calorie counting, your points, your journals, your pills, your shots, whatever, your injections, whatever they are, if you're going to do that and you have a food thing, that problem is not going to go away. So you'll either need to stay on that treatment forever and ever and ever and ever, like meaning you'll never be able to go off that diet, period. Or you'll have to always keep taking the injections or the pills or whatever, because you will have to, because that's something that's just like masking the actual problem. So it's just like taking, I don't know, an Advil if you have like something that can be like actually fixed, but you're like, nah, I think I'll just take the pain meds, right? That's something that is similar, right? Because if you're going to treat this, but you're not actually going to fix the problem, then you're just treating a symptom. And remember, weight is a symptom of an underlying problem. So think about it also from the perspective of like having like a hole in your roof in your home where you're living and like just dealing with all the mess that comes with every rainstorm that randomly hits, right? It's almost like I've got this hole in my head and I don't know what to do with it, but like, man, oh man, when those rainstorms hit, I'm a complete disaster, right? And so that's what I want you to think of as like, if you want to keep this food thing and not fix it. All right, so 20 things. If you have a food thing, you struggle every day trying to figure out what the heck to eat. You've literally been on one diet or another for more than a decade. That's number 2. Number 3, you've been stressing and struggling with your body image since you were a teen. Number 4, you're constantly thinking about food. What to eat, when to eat, how much to eat, how little to eat. Number 5, you have tried keeping track of your macros, counted your points, counted calories, eaten the shakes and bars or special meal plans, only to end up in the same place again and again and again. Number 6, you also feel like that if you don't control every last morsel that passes your lips, that you will lose total control and that you won't be able to stop eating. Number 7, you get mad at yourself and you beat yourself up for overeating, and then you wonder, why can't I just eat like a normal person? Number 8, you constantly fluctuate between strict eating and stress eating. Number 9, you randomly eat even when you're not hungry. Number 10, you feel guilty throwing food away in the garbage, so you choose to throw it into your mouth and have it turn into garbage inside of your body. Number 11, you struggle on a daily basis feeling like you are out of control with food, like this is never going to end, and like how much worse can this get? Number 12, every day, probably around the same time, you get this incredible, overwhelming urge to just eat sweets and junk food. This could be in the late afternoon or late at night. Number 13, food is on your mind 24/7. Every morning you start off with the same good intention. Today's going to be a good day. And yet before you know it, you also think, oh, here I go again. Number 14, you've been trying to lose weight and successfully keep it off for decades now. Number 15, you feel like food controls every emotion of your life. You're constantly reciting the food rules in your head, even though you can't follow half of them at the times that you're all stressed out, because you're also like allowing food to influence your mood. So it's like, if you're happy, it's a time to eat. If you're sad, it's a time to eat. If you're angry, it's a time to eat. If you're social, it's a time to eat. If you're alone, it's a time to eat. Food, 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 food. It's all you can think about. Number 16, you have labeled yourself as a people pleaser. You'd do anything for anyone, but you have very little time for yourself, even though you love to help people. Sometimes you feel a bit taken advantage of. And at least food doesn't let you down, right? Number 17, sometimes you tell yourself that you're lazy or that you just don't have motivation, which again is totally not true, since you would be the first one to volunteer if someone else asked you for help. Number 18, you tell yourself that you don't know what's wrong with you, or you put yourself down by calling yourself not so nice names. Number 19, you have a little voice in the back of your head that talks you into eating things that you do not want to eat, and then later you regret it. You feel guilty, ashamed, embarrassed, or angry at yourself. Number 20, you wish there was just a magic wand and that would take all of the stress and anxiety away, because you know that it's the stress and anxiety that are making you want to eat. All right, so how'd we do? Do you have a food thing? All right. And while you might be thinking to yourself, all right, Lisa, this is ridiculous. I have all of those things. And those things are just like who I am. That's just normal. Like everybody deals with those things, right? Like they're not going to suddenly take stress out of the world, right? I just accept those things as my normal everyday life. And this is where I challenge you. Because if you're accepting pain and discomfort, all because that's what you're used to, this is an absolutely horrible idea. And you could say to yourself, well, I don't know, there's always going to be stress in life. Yeah, there's always going to be something going on in life. The thought, though, is that if you keep telling yourself that you're a stress eater, that you're going to always have to be like gravitating towards that stress, kind of like a bug going into a white light, like you can't stay away from it. So now you're going to be escalating drama inside of your own mind instead of de-escalating drama, staying in your own lane, not taking ownership of other people's problems, being free and clear to take care of yourself and take ownership of your own problems, period. End of story. Okie dokie. This brings me to secret number 3, because if you have the food thing, then you're definitely doing this one as well. This is a question that I want you to ask yourself. Am I staying in alignment with my integrity at all times? Now, you might think to yourself, well, I have integrity. I'm a good person. I'm trustworthy. Like people can count on me. That's great and all. But if you're knowing one thing and then you're ending up going to do another, and it's a sneaky subconscious trick, and you're bullying yourself and you're treating yourself poorly and you're not being kind, that is a betrayal on your integrity, my friend. You are betraying your own integrity. And yes, you are self-sabotaging. So let me explain how this works. I know if you're anything like I used to be, you're probably not eating this super yummy junk food in front of people, at least not much anyways. For me, I would tend to eat alone in the car a lot. I'd go into a store, I'd buy healthy food. I mean, I was a personal fitness trainer, and I was also like the leader of a lot of nutrition programs and for kids, and my kids were in those programs. So like I wasn't keeping like cheese doodles in the house unless they were from Whole Foods, of course, because in my mind, I was like, but these are healthy cheese doodles. So I'd buy all these like healthful snacks and foods and whatever for my family. I'd oftentimes come out with like an extra box of cookies because I did keep cookies in the house for the kids, but like I was buying these cookies every day. This was a $4.59 box of cookies. So I'd eat most of them or all of them in the car on the way home. And then if I had eaten all of them for sure, I would stop off at a gas station and throw away the package because I'd walk in my house like nothing ever happened. Like I wasn't showing anybody that. Absolutely not. Or if I had those cookies in my house, a lot of times I would like stand in the corner of my kitchen. I don't know how many of you have ever done this. Like for me, there was like a spot where like the refrigerator door could open and I could have this like little quiet spot. And so I would stand in that spot. Like, so that way, if anybody came in the front door, they couldn't see me yet. And I had enough time to like brush the crumbs off my face, put whatever I was eating back, close the door, act like I was getting something else out. Like, how many times have you done this? How many times have you, like, someone walks in the room and now you pretend you're like reaching for the cake and you're pretending like, oh, I'm grabbing an apple. How many times have you done that? Right? So I was never the same with myself in public as I was in private. It was like I tried so hard to be the best version of myself for other people. In fact, I prided myself in it. But then for myself, I was only showing myself the worst version of myself. And it was at these times that I betrayed my own integrity. So, the word integrity, in case you don't really know exactly what it means, describes the quality of being honest and the state of being whole and undivided. But I wasn't being honest. I was lying to myself and I was telling myself that I was just not capable of change and that I just couldn't trust myself around food and that I was a failure because I couldn't stick to these diets that I was constantly trying to live on. None of that was true because I know that I cared very deeply about being a good person. And yet I was not being very good to myself. I left the good parts of me for everyone else. And the parts of me that were awkward and uncomfortable and like didn't really match my being, like didn't really match what I wanted for myself, I was leaving those parts for me. It was super duper confusing. It definitely took a whole new way of thinking and a lot of new information that I had to learn about myself to fix this. But because it was an old and limiting operating system, right? It was like things that weren't helping me get to my future self. But let's face it, my way of doing things wasn't really working for me anymore. And it was causing me a lot of damage. It was not easy on my relationships, even because I could get ticked off really fast. Like I wasn't even, I was like, in 1 minute I could be this, and then somebody would say something and I'd be upset. And then I could be yelling or crying in 2 seconds, right? I was almost unpredictable because I was so stressed about other people's things. And again, because I was telling myself I was a stress eater, it was like, how much more can I take? Because I was taking in all of the outside stuff into myself. And then I was applying attention towards all the outside stuff, which didn't leave me a lot of time for me. I abandoned myself with the eating that I was doing, so I abandoned myself all while I was telling myself that food was going to calm me down. What an absolute lie. So once you learn how to focus on your integrity, you can learn how to pay close attention to how you're eating rather than worrying about what you're eating or when you're eating, like all of those diets tell you to do. Focusing on the how you're eating will help you to slow things down and it'll allow your mind and body to connect on a deeper level. Trust me, I didn't know that staying in my integrity with myself was so important either. But after I had this breakthrough, I recognized that I had some work to do. And let me tell you something. You might be listening to this podcast and you might say, oh my gosh, Lisa, I never realized that before. Like, this is amazing. Like, you might just be like off and running, being like, I'm going to be in my integrity now. That's wonderful and all. But let me tell you something. A breakthrough is a starting place, not an ending place. So just listening to this podcast will not be enough. You will have to take action. You will have to get help. So even if it's not with me, get help from someone else. Yet at the same time, be very conscientious of who you're getting help from, because if you're going to get help from the same people who have been putting you on the diets for years, then you might want to rethink that one. I had to unlearn all of the things, all of the diet rules that I had learned in the past. And I had to learn how to go back into a place where I could listen to my own intuition like I was born with, right? It was a skill that I had abandoned decades ago. I had to become a beginner again. I had to learn new things that I had never thought of before. And I had to have help because let's face it, again, my way was not working for me. Time to embrace something new. Now, I'm not talking about any kind of crazy deep therapy or earth shattering changes, right? I'm not a counselor, I'm not a therapist. I'm just talking about becoming aware of your sneaky subconscious past patterns and habits and making certain that those new habits that you would like to have, that you would like to, learn are going to be in alignment with your truth. Like anybody can follow a diet, right? If I say, if all of a sudden you say to me, oh, well, Lisa, I'm only allowed to eat like tomatoes on the 24th day of this diet, whatever. And then I have to cut out potatoes and bread and everything, but then I'm allowed to add it back in on day 27. Like This is absolutely not going to help because it's not going to help you build your emotional trust and resilience within yourself. And it is a betrayal of your integrity. I believe wholeheartedly that wherever you're at in your journey today, that you are a very responsible woman. And this means that when you're shoveling, stuffing, hiding, sneaking, and binge eating foods that you don't want to eat or that make you feel like crap about yourself, is a betrayal of your integrity because it's not the real you. It's coming from a subconscious version of you, an autopilot version of you. And once upon a time, perhaps those same habits worked really well. Perhaps they brought you comfort when you were in a dangerous situation or a time that was really scary for you. But now, how is the same method working for you? It's probably not, or else you wouldn't be here listening to a podcast about emotional eating. So I promise you that if you stick with me, you will learn how to crush your food thing, period. All right. That wraps up another episode of the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. This week in the show notes, remember, we're giving away the free masterclass that we spoke about in the episode called The 3 Secrets That I Use to Conquer Stress Eating, Beat Self-Sabotage, and Kick the All or Nothing Mindset around food. May I also suggest that you book a call with me? There is a call link in the show notes. This is a free call. It's just something that we can go over all of these food thing symptoms so that I can give you the best solutions possible. And we can take one first, next, right step at a time forward, because I want you to be able to move on to the next chapter of your life, because struggling for decades is pointless since, like I said, emotional eating is fixable. Like Henry Ford says, is the quote, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you'll be right. So don't be right about staying stuck because that's just silly. And as always, if you're looking for a bite-sized opportunity to explore self-discovery, might I recommend the Mindset Makeover Challenge, which is a 21-day challenge to learn how to stop eating your emotions. And we also have, this is the superest, coolest thing ever, we also have a new membership called the Hub Club. It is so much fun. We have 3 members in it right now, which is okay because the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. All you have to do is have a vision. Did you ever see the movie The Field of Dreams? If you build it, they will come. And that is exactly what I'm building here, is support for women like you who are struggling with emotional eating, who actually want to fix the problem. So this weekly membership, you can grab the link and read all about it. It's where you can come to one of our weekly self-discovery lessons each and every week of the month. So you can grab all that stuff in the show notes. And as always, if you want to talk to me, you just want to jam, you just want to tell me something, you can always send me a message at lisa@coachlisacallahan.com. Put attention podcast so that I know that it's from the podcast. All right. You deserve to live an extraordinary life, one where food does not invade every thought 24/7. So let's get started. And I am excited for you to learn how to crush your food thing. Bye for now. All right, my beautiful friend, that brings us to the end of another episode from the Crush Cravings with Confidence podcast. I hope you enjoyed listening today and took something from our conversation that you are going to put into immediate action. I love spending time with you and would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with at least one friend today who you think might be struggling too. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any other amazing topics. And please, please do leave me a review. It would mean the world to me. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.